Michael's house was old, almost as old as the memories he clung to, though those memories felt more like weights than treasures. The house, much like his life, was cluttered, filled with remnants of dreams that never blossomed. The flickering light from a dusty lamp barely illuminated the living room, casting long shadows across worn-out furniture. Michael sat slumped in his armchair, staring blankly at the muted television. His days were monotonous, each blending into the next, filled with the hum of nothingness. He hadn't left the house in days, and he wasn't sure he wanted to. The walls creaked with age, a house settling into the earth, but tonight, something was different. The sounds seemed closer, more deliberate, as though the house itself was whispering to him. He dismissed it as the wind, though there was no wind tonight. As the clock struck midnight, Michael heard it for the first time, a faint whisper from the basement, barely audible but unmistakably calling his name. Michael. He sat up, heart pounding. The voice was soft, almost tender, yet it sent chills down his spine. He shook his head, convincing himself it was just his mind playing tricks. Yet, the whisper lingered, threading through the silence like a forgotten melody. The next night, the whispers returned, more persistent, more desperate. They beckoned him, coaxing him out of his lethargy. Michael tried to ignore them, but curiosity gnawed at him. What could be making those sounds? Reluctantly, he descended into the basement, each step creaking under his weight. The air grew colder with each step, the kind of cold that burrowed into your bones. At the bottom, he stood in the dim glow of a single bare bulb, scanning the familiar walls of peeling paint and shelves lined with dusty boxes. And then he saw it, a door. It stood in the far corner, where there had never been one before. The wood was dark and ancient, carved with symbols that seemed to shift and writhe under his gaze. A metallic, rusted doorknob glinted in the dim light, almost beckoning him to touch it. Michael approached cautiously, his breath shallow. The whisper stopped the moment he laid his hand on the doorknob. He twisted it, but it was locked, as though mocking his attempt to enter. He stepped back, trembling, the silence now deafening. In the days that followed, the whispers grew louder. They invaded his dreams, turning sleep into a battleground of restless thoughts and shadowy figures. He heard them in the daylight, weaving through the mundane noise of his life, making his solitude unbearable. His anxiety escalated, each whisper a needle threading through his sanity. Michael became obsessed with the door, spending hours in the basement, watching it, waiting for something to happen. His reflection on his failures sharpened during these vigils, the career he never pursued, the love he let slip away, the chances he was too afraid to take. Every whisper was a reminder of what could have been. One night, after another torturous evening of whispers and regret, Michael couldn't take it anymore. He rummaged through the basement, pulling open old drawers and boxes until he found an ancient-looking key. It was heavy, cold to the touch, and somehow he knew it belonged to the door. With trembling hands, he inserted the key and turned it. The lock clicked open with a sound that echoed through the still air, louder than thunder in the quiet. He opened the door slowly, revealing a dark corridor that seemed to stretch into nothingness. A cold draft rushed out, extinguishing the basement light, plunging him into darkness. But he didn't turn back. He stepped through. On the other side, the air was different, still, heavy with a sense of timelessness. Michael emerged into what seemed like his house, but everything was slightly off. The furniture was newer, the walls freshly painted, and the air smelled of lavender, not mildew. He walked through the rooms, each step filling him with unease. There were pictures on the walls of a life he didn't recognize, photos of himself smiling, happy, with a woman he once loved but lost. In these pictures, they were together, their eyes shining with a joy that had long since left his own. He found a study, a place where his alternate self worked. On the desk were awards and certificates, accolades for achievements he had never attained but once dreamed of. The whispers had brought him here, to a life that was everything he had ever wanted, but had never dared to reach for. As he moved through this perfect world, Michael felt the weight of his own life crushing down on him. He realized that this place wasn't a dream, it was a taunt, a cruel manifestation of what he could have been. Then he saw him, the alternate Michael, sitting in the living room, content and unaware of the visitor. The whispers returned, louder now, coming from the very walls, the very air, urging him to stay. "Stay," they pleaded. "This can be yours." But it was a lie, wasn't it? This life wasn't his, could never be his. It was a cruel trick of fate, a ghostly echo of what might have been. Michael stood at the threshold, torn between the suffocating reality he knew and the seductive lie of this alternate life. The pull was strong, almost irresistible. He wanted to step into this world, to leave behind the crushing weight of his real life, but he knew it would never be real. He stumbled back towards the door, the whispers turning to desperate screams, trying to pull him back. His heart pounded as he crossed the threshold again, slamming the door behind him, trapping the perfect life on the other side. Michael was back in his basement, the familiar cold and darkness surrounding him. But something was different now. Something inside him had broken irreparably. He felt hollow, consumed by the knowledge of what he had lost, of what he could never have. The door remained, silent now, but its presence was a constant reminder of the life he had glimpsed but could never live. The whispers might have stopped, but their echoes remained, reverberating through his mind, poisoning every moment with regret. Michael sank to the floor, overwhelmed by the weight of his failure, the oppressive darkness closing in around him. He was trapped, not by the door, but by his own regret, lost between the life he had and the one he could never have. And as the last light flickered out in the basement, Michael knew he would never escape. The forgotten door had taken everything from him. Thank you for joining me this evening. Before you go, make sure you subscribe and leave a like. If you have an idea for a short, scary story, leave it in the comments below. See you at the next campfire.